Hey everybody, how you doing? First of all, I apologize for the significant delay today, but we had a tornado watch that lasted originally it was to last until 7 o'clock. It ended an hour ago, but power was out, and by that time, I had significantly shifted what I was doing simply to deal with the fact that we didn't have any power and had to marshal lights so that we can make sure that we had enough lights in case the power outage went until dark. How you doing? And then we had to set up the phones for the internet, you know, using what's called your uh, personal hotspot so that we could get internet, right? All that. So this is a cleanup day, and I meant to make an individual video on top of that. Just because of the last 4 days, I'm still exhausted, and I didn't realize it until I woke up probably earlier than I should have. Originally, with the idea of going to church, and that didn't pan out. And then you get in these things where you don't feel like going back to sleep, right? And you're kind of in that middle between wanting to sleep and wanting to stay up, and then going all over the plans you had and everything else. I spent a lot of time recoding the WordPress sites owned by Zennie 62 Media so that their online performance is better than ever. And very proud of where we are right now. But I want to talk to you, having said all that, I want to talk to you about the upcoming Vital Vegas Can't Handle It, No One Can Avoid It, groundbreaking for what will be Major League Baseball's crown jewel facility when it is open in 2028. And that is the ballpark of, dare I say it, hard to say, but it's unavoidable, the Las Vegas Athletics. But you can say, as I will say, the Oakland A's Las Vegas Athletics, because that's how you and I are going to remember them for our time, unless, of course, you happen to be one of those rare individuals that's in Las Vegas and has no familiarity at all with the Oakland A's until recently. Note what I just said in its entirety, because most people don't hear everything that I say. And I admit that's because I'm long-winded. But I did say, for those rare individuals in Las Vegas who are from Las Vegas and are not familiar with the Athletics at all, know that you've never been to an A's game at the Coliseum, you've never watched the A's on television, you have virtually no history with the Athletics of any kind. You're just finding all this out brand new. I'm not saying don't watch. Hey, welcome, but I made the statement that I made prior to that was for you. At any rate, um, this statement I make for the rest of us, including especially those who join me in what seems to be a countless number of efforts to save the A's in Oakland. Now, I'll give you an example, just for history's sake, of one of those efforts by video, because, well, that's the beauty of having this YouTube channel. And I will show you, okay? And that is, oops, excuse me. Forgot Zennie. Yeah, here it is. Our internally famous, I call this internally famous video. So here it is. Choose or Lose the A's, featuring a number of friends of mine. Let me play it for you right here. This was the first video representing the first effort to save the Athletics in Oakland. Right here. Here we go, folks. Oh, you know what? I forgot something. Hold on a second. Let me stop it right there. You want to know why? Because it's not going to play the sound because echo cancellation is on. Now echo cancellation is off. And I can go back to it. Hey, everybody. And I can play this great legendary video.
Hi there, I'm Rob Limon, and I kind of started this little thing called Choose or Lose Oakland, and just kind of putting it out there that as an Oakland resident, I don't feel like the leaders are representing my voice, and Oakland A's are an Oakland resource, and they should be kept in Oakland, and it would be a tragedy. Oakland would get an F if they lose the A's. So we need 1,000 people to show up on July 7th, Oakland Coliseum, B parking lot, the Hagenberger side of the parking lot. Show up for a tailgate party and a rally. We're going to hear from the politicians, and we're going to cheer on the Oakland A's, keeping them in Oakland.
Hey, introduce the team here.
Okay, here's the team right here. These are our flag waver, drummer extraordinaires. We've got Steve Lowe here. We've got Bob Fratty. You guys, once you guys,
Yeah.
Okay, say your names.
Please.
My name is Nate. Ready? All right. My name is Al. All right. Fred.
All right, cool.
Bobby, representing left field bleachers.
All right.
Maurice Greer, representing left field bleachers.
All right, cool.
Keith Salmon, game day operations.
All right, and
Save the A's. Save the A's.
and the great Steve Lowe, right?
Great Steve.
Okay. All right.
A's must stay.
What date is that?
So it's July 7th, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. right before the game. B parking lot, right at the power poles on the Hagenberger side. And it's a big tailgate party.
And the last Mexicans will bring, I know Bomb will bring their own gear. They always bring their own
So
gear.
we'll have a microphone and we'll have sound equipment and I'll literally bring a box. So
Have we sent the invitation to the council?
So this is what I am going to, I have not, I've been.
No, we haven't done that yet, but we should do that.
What I am going to do tomorrow, unless someone else wants to do it, is I am going to put out emails and follow up with a phone call to all the local politicians on the list.
Yeah, I'll give you a hand.
Unless someone else wants to do that.
I'll give you a hand.
Who do you want to take, Zennie?
I'll take. Let's split it up later.
Okay,
Figure it out.
offline. Yeah. So we're going to talk about, we're going to email politicians tomorrow.
I'm going to email politicians tomorrow.
Tomorrow, the 21st. Rob and Zennie are going to do it unless someone else wants to step in and also help out with that.
We know a list of Dylan's people that I can send it to, so make sure that I get a copy. Yeah, I probably already have a copy.
One big banner, but then make separate signs of all other ideas.
Well, this is the deal. There's this guy Steve, who is a friend of mine, who works over, who owns Berkeley Signs. They do this really cool sign work. He does, big paint. He does the signs the old-fashioned.
Yeah. So, Take Action's July 7th A's game. Had meeting for that. And that was a successful event. There were subsequent events to that. And that was the first one. And then we had the meeting of introducing Coliseum City. And that was in 2009. And if you go to YouTube, you type Oakland Coliseum City Origins, you can find it. And just type Zennie 62 just for good measure. And that you'll see a picture of a gray-haired white fellow who's, I call him one of my godfathers, Bob Lesty. He's since passed away. I miss him very much. His daughter Linda is a great friend of mine, the Lesty family from Skyline. At any rate, this is a long video. It is 25 minutes and 19 seconds. I'm not going to show by any means the whole of it. Give you a taste of it.
Zennie, it's going to be pretty brief. It's gathered a lot of dust in the last 3 years. I mean, it should have been done. Right. Yeah. But we're gonna go at it and see if it makes some sense. I mean, I know it makes sense. It's just a matter of whether there's a will and a consensus to do it.
Now, what he's talking about as far as the will and consensus to do it is he's talking about a concept that this was in 2009. 3 years before that, Steve Lowe, who you remember from the first video, Frank Dobson, who's a local architect, and Bob Lesty, who I talked about, came up with an idea of having what would basically be a pavilion of shops and restaurants outside the stadium at the Coliseum because there's nothing to do. You know, so you get there early for the A's game, right? There's no place to go. So that went nowhere. This was another stab at it under the administration of Oakland Mayor Lamont Dellums. And between, to put things in their proper time, we had another event that happened before Choose or Lose the A's, but before the creation of YouTube. So, and what happened was that it was a very sad and very unfortunate and should never have happened effort to build a downtown ballpark for the athletics, killed by then Oakland Mayor Jerry Brown, simply because he didn't want, as he put it, an effing effing ballpark in Oakland as long as he was mayor. That's exactly how he put it. Okay, well, he didn't say effing. He said it full out, all right? And it was very sad, very unfortunate. And if you think about it, unnecessary. But it was done. And if you want to get a glimpse at what it was going to look like, I think the East Bay Express has photographs, as do I. But here's a taste of an artist's rendition of what that was going to look like. And here, it got as far as a conceptual level right there before on May 2nd of 2012, Mayor Brown put the kibosh on it and fired Oakland City Administrator, formerly Oakland City Manager Robert Bob. We had shifted from a council manager form of government to a strong mayor form of government. And to give you an idea, all right, of the dramatic difference in city structure change that I argue is the real problem. This is why we don't have the A's, folks. And I argue is the real reason why we don't have the Athletics. Because if we had maintained a council manager form of government, Jerry Brown would not have been able to fire Robert Bob. That's why. That's why. Jerry Brown would not have been able to fire Robert Bob. But the simple fact, Robert Bob came in as city manager, and Jerry inherited Robert Bob. Oakland City Attorney, our first elected city attorney, John Russo, brokered the relationship between two people described as powerful individuals with powerful personalities and all this jazz, right? But John did successfully broker a relationship between them, which doesn't say much for, well, I don't want to get off on a tangent there, so I just stop right there. The simple fact of the matter is that Jerry's idea of how cities work is different from actually how cities are supposed to properly work, and yet how he thinks cities should work was poured into the creation of Measure X and this new city structure, which gave the mayor the power to hire and fire the city manager, which we now call city administrator. And if you think about that, since the city administrator is really the chief executive officer of the city, if you know the chief executive officer of the city who just hired you is going to be gone a year from now, it's going to make you, regardless of what you are hired to do, look around for another job yourself because you think you're going to be axed at some point. And that has happened in Oakland's history since that point in time. But if we maintain a city manager form of government, this is why I get so upset with A's fans about not paying attention to government. If we had paid attention to that, if we had maintained that structure, a council manager form of government, I argue that the Athletics would have had their downtown ballpark and we wouldn't even be in this position. And that's what leads me to discuss the matter of this groundbreaking. The groundbreaking will be a reminder of our failures, a reminder of the fact that we let politics overtake us, really did, and paid no attention to the projects that defined Oakland to that point, let alone would come to define the city's positive future if we maintain them. But with strong mayor, whoever is mayor gets to come in and literally make sweeping changes if they know what they're doing, but more often than not, they don't. And the city's structure is so complex in terms of its relationships that that if you come in and make sweeping changes like that, you're going to make a mistake somewhere along the line. It's unavoidable. It's unavoidable. I don't care how much planning you do. It's unavoidable because there's always a constituency you're going to upset that you didn't know was there. That's how complex Oakland is. Okay? So sometimes you're better off, and that's also true for governments in a democracy, like the United States government. And that's what the Trump administration is finding out because it was, well, I don't want to get off on a tangent there, but you get the idea. You don't just come in and change things. There's a reason why the structure is there. But we're in an era of politics where people want to come in, and because it's not push button what they want right now, they want to get rid of it, paying no attention to the legacy that caused it to be developed. And that is what's gotten us into this situation. So, as a result, we don't have a downtown ballpark. And in 2010, after that, we had Doug Boxer come along, tried to develop take another go at a ballpark, this time at a place called Howard Terminal in Jack London. But he was challenged by a friend of mine, an environmental lawyer in Oakland by the name of Vivian Kahn, who happened to be a neighbor to that and was quite upset over the way the Port of Oakland had handled it, which basically boiled down to, hey, look, you know what? You didn't talk to Vivian and or her group of environmentalists, lawyers who happen to be, dwellers down there. Bad move. Bad move. I interviewed Vivian a long time ago, and at any rate, long story short, she won the battle. Doug Boxer, yes, the son of the great Senator Barbara Boxer, lost the battle. And there are a lot of people who are very crestfallen over that outcome. I'm one of them. So there went that. Now, a number of you are thinking about also the effort the A's embarked on to find a stadium is under Lou Wolf down there in Fremont. But what a number of people forget, Fremont and San Jose, is that in both areas, well, in Fremont in particular, environmentalists also attacked that proposal aggressively and made it untenable. San Jose is too close, basically arguably in the San Francisco Giants territory. And so by all rights, the Giants would have a right to say, "Hey, look, pay us $5 million annually." That's a huge chunk of change, just to cough up. Not happening. And then on top of that, Lou was complaining that he didn't have the proper cooperation with the city, but what Lou was proposing would have called for the elimination in terms of location of 200 businesses down there at the Coliseum. And when they got wind of what he was planning, they went ape, completely ape. So it was yet another impolitic move by that executive of the A's at the time, which was typical, and it fell apart. So now we're headed into past Doug Boxer and then moving forward, and we had, and you have to remember the other way we got into this, going back to 1996, is that the Coliseum, once a great place to watch both baseball and football, was altered into a football palace of a sort, with no thought regarding sightlines for baseball and what people enjoyed. The idea was, well, okay, they're great as they are, and this is going to make more money for them. And at the time, and for a time, it did, but they'll be okay. But what altered that situation was the simple fact that baseball players' salaries were increasing dramatically, and the Athletics could only carve out their piece of the advertisement pie in the stadium, as opposed to what their competitors are beginning to establish: ownership of the entire revenue stream of the stadium / ballpark. If you own the entire revenue stream, if Earth, Wind, and Fire comes to do a concert, you get part of that money, and so on. All right? The A's did not have that luxury, and people don't understand that. And so here you are with this little sliver of revenue you can carve out from the stadium that's barely increasing compared to your competitors' larger chunks, allowing them to afford better players, including yours, making offers to your players that you cannot match, and therefore causing you to watch your players leave. That was the Athletics. So Moneyball helped produce wins, but it also helped produce a kind of a playing testing ground for players that then went on to play for the Yankees. You know the drill. How many years did we sit and see that? Name the players that went from the Athletics to the Yankees and became stars. And kept going and going and going, like Verlander and Crisp and right? Okay? On and on and on. It was tiresome. But that's because of the way the stadium's revenue structure was set up on a per team basis, as opposed to the modern variant, which is, hey, the A's need their own facility, the Raiders need their own facility, and the Warriors need their own facility, and there was room for all three at the Coliseum. It's just that the Coliseum didn't have the proper management structure to make that happen. Not that it couldn't have built it. It could have. But Oakland's want has been to do everything in a piecemeal fashion. In other words, you and I have an idea, we sit in the back room, we get our group to put that idea together, and then our group moves forward. We get the necessary approvals, and that's it. Just enough for us to get what we want, but not enough to cause the entire facility to be properly planned for the future. Okay? And that's why in 1997, when the Athletics, when I started working for Elihu, I appeared before the city council at our community economic development agency meeting. This was in the morning. This was 1996. And I said that excuse me, 1997, because I already been with LAU for about a year, and I said that the main problem, and I may put this on a special agenda to make this issue public, was that while we brought the Raiders back to Oakland, we totally forgot about and created a $197 million expense for ourselves in the need to establish a new stadium a new ballpark for the Athletics. Oh, they didn't want to hear that. Nate Miley said, "We just spent $200 million getting the Raiders back." And I said, "Yeah, I know, but this is because of the timing of events where we're at. This is what we have to do." Of course, what do we do? Nothing. All right. We have been allergic to long-term investment planning when it comes to developments for businesses that attract events at scale. At scale. We do not, that's why to this day, Oakland does not have a world-class convention center. That's why to this day, Oakland has a convention center downtown that's only 150,000 square feet versus the million square feet plus next door at Moscone Center. And then there are those of you in Oakland who have said, well, if we build a big one in Oakland, won't that hurt Moscone Center? As opposed to, hey, this will give us a bigger footprint of space to sell and bring people to the Bay Area, right? But oh no, we don't want to hurt Moscone Center. What about Oakland? This is the kind of mentality that has hurt Oakland. The existence of San Francisco and the idea that San Francisco should have something that's on a large scale and that essentially Oakland shouldn't have it because, oh, it'll hurt San Francisco. Whereas no one bothers to think that, hey, you know what? If we happen to build this arena, it will take the Warriors out of Oakland. The idea was, well, yeah, they don't deserve to be there anymore. That was the attitude of a number of people, including Mark Benioff, that Oakland had its day, and that San Francisco deserved its team back. That was the attitude they had. And we didn't put up a fight to stop it when it was happening in 2012, when it became clear what the Warriors are going to do. What a number of fans said that Joe Lacob was going to do the minute he bought the team. A number of fans called it. They said, Joe Lacob does not want to be in Oakland. He's going to take his team and move it to San Francisco. That's precisely what he did. And arguably, in terms of potential total revenue, is still suffering for it. So, but the bottom line is, what's the center point of all this? It's government. It's Oakland government. Everything changes. Owners change with the Athletics. Operating officers change with the Athletics. The very salary structure of baseball changes. But what remains in all of this? What's the centerpiece of all this? Oakland government. And its piecemeal habit that it brings to the resolution of policy and economic development problems with respect to the sports industry. And then it got worse. I don't know if you remember that. So 2009 was where Coliseum City went from, at the Dellum's office, went from this, little pavilion concept to a big city concept. A city within the city. Building affordable housing in East Oakland and everything else, right? Larry Reed took that, yanked it from Frank Dobson, Bob Lesty, and Steve Lowe, put out an RFP and began hunting for developers. The developer that a number of people favored simply didn't have the money to build it. That's a fact. Floyd Kephart talked a great game, and for reasons really having nothing to do with anything he had actually built. In fact, excuse me, let me rephrase my sentence. For reasons having nothing to do, not really, I'm not going to qualify it, nothing to do with anything he had built that anyone could show an example of. They swore up and down that I can't.
Most people don't know this, but the real reason behind searing sciatic.
Well, thanks. Sorry about. Thanks. Okay. At any rate, most people don't realize this, but Floyd Kephart took the city for a ride. The A's were part of that. The original concept for Coliseum City called for a ballpark for the Athletics next to a refurbished stadium for the Raiders, next to the arena, which, of course, the home of the Warriors. So we would have 3 facilities for our 3 great teams. But, and this was told to me eventually by Larry Gallegos, who unfortunately no longer works for the city. Yes, the same Larry Gallegos that was involved with trying to help Oakland Mayor Shang Tao and her affordable housing effort, told me simply that they checked and Floyd did not have the money he claimed to have. Yet, the same gentleman was trying to put himself in a position to own 20, listen to this, 20% of the Oakland Raiders. He was also requesting $400 million in subsidy from the city of Oakland. So it's not too hard to figure out what he was going to do with that $400 million of public money, especially when it was discovered that he didn't have the money he claimed to have. When I found that out from Larry, I personally made a beeline. This was in 2015. Over to the office of Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, and I told her, and Libby immediately booted Floyd Kephart from any further work on the Coliseum City. We were being used. And then, if you know the timeline here, the very next year, 2016, was the one where Mark Davis had made overtures to move to Las Vegas and was rejected in January of that year. That press conference is here on Zennie 62 YouTube, was rejected by the NFL ownership in his desire to move to LA and join the Rams in what we now call SoFi Stadium. He got up on the podium and vowed that he would find a new home for the team. He said nothing about Oakland. Nothing. Because he had it in his mind already that he was going to go to Las Vegas. So as that's happening, of course, that's 2016. 2017, the Athletics hired Dave Cobble. Why? To build a new stadium. That press conference is here on Zennie 62 YouTube. In 2017, Dave told me that the problem with the Coliseum site was that he would have to build a $400 million platform because of projected sea level rise down there due to changes in global water amounts due to global warming. And so they were looking at Howard Terminal. Now, the way it was played out in the public was, hey, look, the A's don't want to be down there because, oh, by the way, new president, John Fisher, they don't want to be down in Black East Oakland. That's how it was pushed. But the reality was that if you take a look at the water runoff and the water collection, the Coliseum, already around 81st Street and Nimitz, when you get off, we used to call the Nimitz, it's called 880, there are pockets of water that develop as high as 3 feet in some areas. And it flooded apartments in that area already. So what Dave Cobble was saying was not a lie. It was true. It was true. But the arrival of Dave Cobble as president of the A's sparked the A's quest for Howard Terminal. And we all know what happened. I'm not going to recount the story here in length, but I will simply say this. The city did not understand how to implement tax increment financing. If it had done so in a timely fashion, 2021, would have been realized was a $2.5 billion subsidy. But ironically, folks, the city has wrote a study, and they presented that study in 2023 April, the same month that the Athletics were in Nevada negotiating with the Nevada legislature to move to Las Vegas, presented a study which is basically an incomplete you're about to see it, an incomplete draft infrastructure financing plan for Howard Terminal that included a $2.5 billion subsidy. Yes, I said that. A $2.5 billion subsidy. And so, let me get this out so that you can see it. And then I'll conclude this. Right here. There it is, folks. That's it. All right. And the title of which simply is Oakland Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, Waterfront Ballpark District at Howard Terminal. And if I scroll down, as you can see that I'm doing, okay, right here. Let's see if it will scroll for me. Yeah, there it is. It's got a bunch of exhibits and every place else. Keep going here and going and going. It has extreme detail. Here we go. Legal descriptions. And we get to the nitty gritty. That's the private development program, the relevant agreements, including acquisition, the use of project tax increment, and it's at level of detail I called for earlier in 2021 that wasn't here, though there. And they used only 20 years of the 45-year bonding period, and therefore took about $1 billion away from potential total revenue for a bond issue. Not this time. Not this time. They estimate, they say the priority uses of available project tax increment here. Then, if you go up here, they talk about the uses of the project tax increment there. And then if you go down, funding sources, okay, on-site greenhouse, and then if you go down here, they talk about funding amounts, federal infrastructure funding, state, regional, local, off-site infrastructure funding they give you, and then the estimated total cost of public facilities, off-site affordable, and everything else. And continue to give you findings of community-wide significance for the project. As well. And then financing. And this is where you get to the nitty-gritty regarding what the project will get. And it discusses allocation of project tax increment and how the EIFD will be funded. It's quite detailed. They did a nice job for a change on this. And discuss the commencement of allocation of project tax increment, in other words, at below. And the breakdown. And they have a projection of the EIFD tax increment revenues by year. And a table that goes with it. It's all here. And you can see the revenue projections here, which, if you add these different districts up, equals 2.5 billion. 2.5 billion. These are different project areas. 1, area 2, area 3, and area 4. This is quite detailed, folks. Area 5. Representing each of the buildings that would be built there, because it's a phased project of $12 billion worth of properties. 8. And then there's 9, 10, 11, 12, and up to this place right here, and right here. And here's where we will stop, and I will show you. It discusses the plan for the financing of public facilities as well. So, and it's all here, folks. And as well as the limit on total dollars allocated. And it reads that the amount of project tax increment to be allocated to the EIFD from 1 to 15, areas 1 to 15 shall not exceed 2.7 billion over its life. Okay? Over its life. And so as a result, it should become clear to everybody watching this now that you were sold a bill of goods. That the subsidy was actually closer to $3 billion and laid out. This document never saw the eye of the public, with the exception of mention on my videos and websites. Well, technically, I should say the videos, websites of Zennie 62 Media Incorporated. That's it. No place else. This was in the database of The Athletic, this document. The Athletic didn't even write about it. Okay? This was done in 2023. By the time this was presented and it's in draft form and it's incomplete, the Athletics were gone. So that's why I get so upset with A's fans talking about John Fisher. This is not John's fault. It is not the Athletics' job to know about tax increment financing or know the job of government. It's government's job to know what it's supposed to do. And the Oakland of the 20th century would not have made this mistake. But the Oakland of the 21st century did. And it continues to do so. Well after the departure of the Athletics. Because of our strong mayor structure and our desire for this quick resolution, make the politician happy, make it seem like you're meeting the needs of the resident when in point of fact you're just making things worse. And that's where we are, folks. Okay? So if you have any questions, please write them in the comments below or use the contact information. I'm happy to answer them. But this is why when the groundbreaking happens, and it will be a sad day for Oakland because it will be a reminder yet again of how we collectively fail. Subscribe to Zennie 62 on YouTube, the vlog report with Zennie 62, and bookmark Oakland News Online.com and NFL and Oakland and ZennieReport.com and NFL News by Zennie62.com since we have the NFL draft coming up. Gotta give a plug for that. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you. I think.